Hello, come in, come in, come in. It's your girl Valerie Campbell, once again, also known as Ali Eve. I want to talk about my new and upcoming book. It's called Perspective. It's Perspective. Now, what month is it? It's the month of June. Lockdown is easing, and we've just spent approximately 3 months in lockdown. And I believe that people's perspective has changed. And it was whilst I was actually in this experience that I realized the significance of my new book called Perspective, which is due out at the end of this month. And I am so excited because I think it's so relevant for the times. I think it's been a period in lockdown where people have looked at their perspective, they've changed their perspective, they've looked at what's of value to them and what's not of value to them, what they're going to prioritize from what they're not going to prioritize. And I think people have become perhaps more plugged into their spiritual self because obviously there's been a lot of death. Okay, my condolences to all the families out there. And it's made us look at ourselves differently. It's made us look at our connection differently. And my book Perspective, I think, came in exactly at the right time for a time such as this. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about my book. And it's based on something quite startling that happened. So here's the story, a little bit insight into the book. So I was probably in my early 20s and I worked for the rag trade. The rag trade is the making and the selling of clothes, and I worked in the East End of London. And in this little tiny office with a warehouse attached to it, it was my job to match swatches of material brought in from the clients to match their clothing. Okay, I would match the thread, right color match to their thread, to their material. And at that time, I had 100% color vision, which means that I had the ability, I don't know now, the ability to detect the minutest change in color. So they really liked me for that. Yeah, I was really good at matching swatches of material to the color that was needed. And you know, as you do, you're at work, you know, the phone would ring heavily and sometimes it would ease off. And in the space of this, where I was just relaxing, just kind of leaning back on my chair, I started to think, and I had a pen in my hand at the time, and I was just doodling, as you do. And I realized when the phone rang, that I looked at my notepad and I realized I had written the words to know the difference between right and wrong. And I thought to myself, why am I writing these words? It's not the first time that I've written these words. What does it mean? And those words would haunt me because over the years it came up periodically, and I really wanted to know, what does it mean to know the difference between right and wrong? It was such a profound statement against the white of the page. Now, a few years later, I worked in Haringey as the only female. I'd worked myself to a position where I was managing approximately 120 men. I was the only female there. But at that time, my path had led me to where I was really into personal development and spiritual growth. And unlike some people who perhaps on a Friday night want to go to the cinema and have a bag of popcorn, for me, it was seminar and a notepad. I really wanted to learn about myself. I was just on that journey. And so I attended a seminar at Victoria. And when I walked into the room, there was a number of people just sitting on the carpet, and the coach was sitting on the stage. And he was speaking in this soft melodic voice, and I was, oh, listen, time is money. I've just come in from a really busy environment. I need to hasten this thing up. But I realized that what he was doing is he was getting everybody on the same page. We're coming from our respective environments, and he wanted us to just be cool. And I thought, ooh, I started to feel really good, and I realized that this was going to be a great experience. And it was a 3-day seminar, and I went back the next day and I sat there, and he announced an intermission. So as everybody kind of trailed out of the room, I went to the front of the room to ask him a question. It's always the questions that drive us, isn't it? And he was speaking to someone to the left of the room. So if you imagine the room is set up seminar style, you've got chairs to the right, to the left, and then you've got the aisle down the middle, and I sat to the front, just waiting patiently. And while I sat there, I had the most incredible, most profound experience I have ever had in my entire life. Now, mind you, the room was empty apart from the coach over there in the far corner talking. I heard a voice as clearly as my voice is to you right now. And the voice pronounced, "There is no difference." Immediately, I began to cry. The tears flowed down my face. And the reason is because I knew it was the answer to those words that I'd written all those years before, to know the difference. And here I was being presented with an answer that said there is no difference. But immediately the other side of my brain, my mind kicked in and said, "What do you mean there's no difference between right and wrong? Everyone knows there's a difference between right and wrong." But I don't know how I knew, but I just knew it was a profound truth. I couldn't explain it, I couldn't articulate it to anybody for fear they thought I'd gone doolally. But yet I knew. It was a knowing. And so that would form the filter, the lens through which I actually viewed the world. And I began to become more sensitive to the voice, which I now call Spirit. And Spirit began to explain to me what this meant. So one day, I was at my desk, similar to how I am now. And outside of the window that I'm facing that you can't see, there is a bench. And Spirit said to me, if you were sat on that bench, looking up at that tree that is ahead of you and above you, you would be adamant that that tree is above you. And I said, yes, of course. And Spirit said to me, okay, and yet if you were in the aeroplane that's above that tree and you were in that aeroplane, would you say that that tree is below you? And I said, yes, of course. And so Spirit said, which of you would be wrong and which right? And I said, well, we'd both be right and we'd both be wrong at the same time. So Spirit said, there is no difference between right and wrong. The only difference is your viewpoint. Yes. So we have to learn to replace our perspective with vision, our information with knowledge. And how do we do that? We do that by the hearing of the word. Much like how I did it. I got myself into a place that was still and silent. I believe that voice is always there. It's always there. But because we're so caught up with our busy lives, we don't hear the whisper of the Spirit that resides in us. I believe that we're physical beings, spiritual beings having a physical, energetic experience. And I believe that we're all connected, each and every one of us. I believe that our bodies serve as a divider in the sense of we appear to be separate, but we're not. We're actually spirit. So to give you an analogy, think of water. Water, when you freeze it into an ice cube tray, all the ice cubes appear to be separate. When you warm it up, the molecules are vibrating even faster, so it turns into a liquid. But then once it has broken its physical form, it turns into steam when it's even further agitated. So we are physical beings. We are physical beings. We are spiritual creatures that have a physical form because we're vibrating at a physical form. And so the book Perspective helps you to realize who you really are, to have your identity, to see yourself how God sees you as opposed to how other people see you. It opens your eyes to not rely on other people's perspectives because they're only giving you part of the story based on their programming. You see, you think you're your programming, but when you were born into this world, you were born into a set of programming. You were born into a religion. You were born into a culture. You were born into what your teachers told you, your parents told you. That is your programming, how the programs on TV program you. That's not who you are. And so we walk around as virgins thinking that we're this particular person when we're not. And we give a voice from that. We give a perception, a perspective from that. But that is not who you are. So to find out who you are and to really look at the spiritual aspect of that, then you need to buy my book called Perspective. It's an investment in who you are. And it will release you to have more freedom, peace, joy, and laughter in your life. So look out for the book Perspective. It will be on Amazon, or you can look on my website www.valerieacampbell.com/perspective, and you can order your copy there. Thank you so much for your time today. As always, it's a pleasure. I love to add value. Have a wonderful day. And as always, the divine in me bows to the divine in you. Bye-bye. Finished. Lavan. Okay. So seeing as I'm in the camera's eye, what else can I talk about? I have another book out. I'm an author. And that first book is called She's Got That Vibe. Now that's based on my experiences when I worked with 120 men, because I wasn't just a manager. I served as their confidant. They were my confidant. They were kind of like my big brothers. And we would share experiences. And when I had experiences with my girlfriends as to, like the pitfalls of relationships, what was going wrong in their relationships, I would share what they taught me to them. One day, one of my friends said, Valerie, you should write a manual on this. And so I then wrote the 10 biggest mistakes women make that turn men off. And that forms the middle chapter of my book, She's Got That Vibe. And why do I call it vibe? Because vibe is a feeling, it's a vibration. There's some women that have the ability to attract effortlessly guys that treat them in a quality way. And I wanted to know what that was. And those were the questions that I asked my boys, that I fondly call them, that I managed. And that's all documented in the book, She's Got That Vibe. So I tell it from a reporting perspective. There's that word perspective again. So that you can really get to grips with what you're actually doing wrong in a relationship and how you can actually correct it to elicit a quality response from a guy. Additionally, if you want a visual representation of the book, it's called The Law of Sexual Polarity, how that actually works. You can go to thesecretvibe.com, and have a look at the visual representation of that. Or again, you can go to my website, valerieacampbell.com/blog, and there is an article there on the law of sexual polarity that explains exactly how you should relate to a man if you want to elicit quality responses from him. So check out my book, She's Got That Vibe. That's available on Amazon also. 10 biggest mistakes. I can hear you. Well, can you give us one insight on what it is? Yes. One of them is the pursuer. The pursued cannot be the pursuer. One of the things I always say is that eggs don't chase sperm. We can look to biology. We can look to biology for clues. And when you think about the egg in the womb, you have the sperm that travels to the egg, and the egg is sitting still and it's receiving energy. It's in feminine energy. By many sperm that kind of like swim towards it, and it's the survival of the fittest, the one that outperforms the rest that gets to penetrate the egg. And then the feminine energy of the egg now embraces and welcomes the sperm and nurtures it to growth. And now we see growth from the inside out. And we can mimic that. I believe we're meant to look at nature. We can look at nature for our answers. And so allow yourself to be pursued. When you step from feminine into masculine energy, think about it. That's where all the problems occur. You don't feel comfortable pursuing. Unless, of course, your genetic makeup is to be more masculine. I'm talking about the heterosexual here. You don't feel comfortable pursuing. In fact, your self-esteem decreases, whereas the masculine energy, the man, feels comfortable pursuing a woman. His self-esteem increases. So if you look at that visual representation at thesecretvibe.com, that will show you exactly how to allow room for a man to feel his masculine energy in his pursuit of the one that he cherishes. So go out there and have a look at She's Got That Vibe. Tell me what you think about it. Leave your comments below this video, and let's discover a new world together. As always, have a wonderful day, and the divine in me bows to the divine in you. Bye-bye.